Good morning, sons of the Most High God, warriors of the kingdom of light, and beloved brothers. Well, it's November 5th, and so we are going to turn to Proverbs chapter 5 to get God's daily dose of wisdom. You know, yesterday in Proverbs chapter 4, we read that we need to guard our hearts with all diligence, for from it flow the springs of life. And today, in Proverbs chapter 5, God reveals an area, or he drills down in an area that has caught many men and is a problem for many men, and that is sexual sin. Practically all of Proverbs chapter 5 is about the wayward woman, the strange woman, the adulteress, depending upon your translation. And verse 3 is the verse that jumps off the page this morning. And it reads like this. It says, "For the lips of an adulteress drip honey, and smoother than oil is her speech." And I think this speaks to how it is that we as men get trapped in an adulterous situation. Flattery, the lips of an adulteress drip honey. It's this flattery or this idea that they're going to appeal to your ego, which is going to trap us. Smoother than oil is her speech. I apologize for the vehicle noise. I live on a busy street, and today the front porch was inviting me. Hopefully, since it's Saturday, it will be less noise. So it's this idea of flattery and appealing to our ego and stroking our ego that is one of the primary traps, or one of the primary ways that we can fall to this temptation of sexual sin. But the solution to the problem is actually found in verse 21 of Proverbs chapter 5. And it reads like this. It says, "For the ways of a man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he watches all his paths." Guys, if we live a life of transparency before the Lord, that's the solution to this type of sexual sin, and this type of sin, and this type of temptation, but to all other different kinds of temptations that we might fall into. We talked about guarding our eye gate and our ear gate yesterday. And this particular verse, that the ways of a man are before the eyes of the Lord, is a terrifying thought to those who do not trust the Lord. You know, as a police officer, I love to work the graveyard shift, mostly because I was a bit of a troublemaker, but mostly because that's where a lot of the crime happens. It happens in the darkness. It happens because we think no one's watching. And that's what happens with us as well. The temptation of sin is only a temptation when we do not understand that we are living in the light of God's gaze. Joseph, when he was tempted with sexual sin, he said, "How can I do this and sin against my God?" It was as we understand that God is always with us. He says he's never going to leave us. He's never going to forsake us. For someone who doesn't trust the Lord, having the gaze of God on his life is a very frightening thing. But for those of us who know his love and his mercy, his grace, this is a comforting thing. This is something that we can stand on. As we trust him more and more, we can live more and more transparently before him and understand, realize, recognize that nothing that we do is outside of the gaze of God. And that's a good thing. It keeps us accountable. It helps us to walk in the light. And it allows us to be freed from these types of temptations that present themselves. Not just sexual temptation, but all kinds of temptation. My brothers, my prayer for us is that we would trust the Lord so much, that we would love the Lord so much, that we would live transparently before him, understanding that his loving gaze is always upon us. Guys, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I sure love you.